Spark when it's on top of the piston and move it out the exhaust pipe.
Making more power means getting more air into the engine. But to get more air in, you first got to move the exhaust gases out. One would expect bigger pipes to let out more exhaust, but that's not the way it worked in this case. They decide to try something counterintuitive, a smaller diameter pipe.
The engine has pistons, and there's 8 pistons going up and down, and it's pumping air out. It's not a constant flow. They come in pulses. The pulses might flow better through a smaller diameter tube than a larger diameter tube. They lose their velocity in a larger diameter tube, and velocity is what you're after to help draw the other pulses through.
We want to try to make the most efficient exhaust system that we can without hurting the power. So experimentation is all you can do. Try different exhaust things, put it on the chassis dyno, and see if it was a gain or a loss.
With the narrower exhaust pipes installed, the BMW goes back on the dyno for testing.
I think some of the changes that we made are pretty favorable. We're seeing some gains here and there and actually flatten out the torque curve some. So I think it's going to help us while we're on track.
As the season gets underway, Fall Line's pit stops are taking less time. The cars are consistently finishing in the top 10.
Second will be Terry Borchella. There's a track race between Espinlove and Spencer Pompelli. Charles gets it.
But halfway into the season, Fall Line has yet to score a single first-place victory.
Well, the whole point of racing is to finish first. And after that would be to be consistent and finish the best you can on a regular basis, because you can win a championship and not necessarily ever win a race.
They may not need a first-place victory, but everyone at Fall Line wants one. It's the 6th race of the season, and the Fall Line BMWs have qualified 1, 2, 3.
We're ready to go racing, and it's Fall Line at the front row. And let's...
Charles Putman starts in 2nd place. But in the very first lap, he makes a costly driver error.
No, around us the 40 over Charles Putman.
Just a few seconds into the 6th race of the season, and Charles Putman is heading into a wide turn at 140 miles per hour. A race driver's job is more than merely steering. It's micromanaging the car's balance.
We as the drivers can alter the balance of that car and put the traction where we want it at any given moment. As we move the weight of the car with the steering wheel side to side, with the brakes and the gas front to rear, we move where that adhesion is in the car. I was at the end of a straightaway in 5th gear. As we enter that turn, the balance needs to be transferred to the rear of the car to keep the rear of the car in place. Well, we do that by adding power to the car. That moves weight to the rear. I made just a real driver blunder. As I entered that turn, I went to downshift from 5th gear to 4th gear. I shifted up to 6th gear, didn't realize I had done it. I didn't have any power because I was in 6th gear, so the car was slow to respond. It went into a slow slide.
Putman's spin was all driver error. The race engineers had given him the right tools to win the race. A highly tuned suspension to hold the car up, and advanced aerodynamics to hold it down. A race car hurtling through space at 140 miles an hour might as well be flying. The only thing holding it down is its own weight and a tiny wing on the back end, or more technically, an airfoil. Airfoils are streamlined devices that control airflow over an object. Manipulating the flow of air is essential to making an airplane fly. A plane's wing is designed to create a low-pressure area above the wing, which induces lift and pulls the plane skyward. The same principle applies to race car wings, but upside down. The car's wing is designed so that the flow of air will push the rear end towards the ground, increasing the tire's grip. At 100 miles an hour, it adds substantial downforce to help keep the rear of the car planted. But as with all things in the quest for speed, there is a trade-off. The wing increases drag.
When you're going down the long straightaway or you're going around the banking at Daytona or something like that, you hang something out in the air, it's trying to slow you down. So if I could take it off and have the rear I wanted, it would be off. It has weight, and it's certainly going to slow me down in a straight line.
The compromise is worth it. Any time lost on the straightaways is more than made up in the corners.
He judged the timing wrong, and that was a great thing.
Charles Putman is lucky. Despite 40 speeding race cars behind him when he spins out, he avoids a collision. He's at the back of the pack, but still in the hunt.
We had a very well-engineered car that weekend. I was able to move through the traffic relatively quickly, picking those places back up.
When Putman hands the car over to his co-driver, Charles Espenlaub, they're in 7th place. Espenlaub continues to push just as hard.
Look at Espenlaub to the inside. He got a run on Joe. He's going to take second spot away. Steve Martin and Charles Espenlaub come together just for the lead of the race. Fall line BMW. That's the reason they are celebrating.
Fall Line gets their first ever Grand Am race win, and along with it, an outside chance at taking the season championship. It's the day before the last race of the season, and the Fall Line team is doing their final on-track testing. All 3 cars are in the top 10 for championship points.
I think this weekend's going to be really good because Terry and I have worked our butts off to get to where we're at right now, and I don't think anything is going to hinder us from taking at least some kind of podium. I want a top 5. That's all I care about. So.
Charles Putman and Charles Espenlaub have stayed consistent all season long, with top 10 finishes in every race. They hold a 10-point lead for the season championship. If they finish 5th or better tomorrow, they'll take the trophy.
You know, obviously this year's been a great year. To go into the last race in this position is very good.
But finishing 5th is hardly a sure thing. The tiniest details today can decide the race tomorrow. A modern race car is constantly tracking its own performance. Electrical sensors monitor everything from brake pressure and throttle application to steering angle and G-forces. A GPS receiver records on-track position. After every practice session comes the analysis.
We learn both from the driver giving us feedback and the data that we look at. We can kind of meld those two things together and ultimately be faster on the course. The red is Terry, the yellow is you.
Okay.
So you can see Terry comes in, brings the car in a little bit earlier and tighter than you do.
Mm-hmm. That's a tricky corner because that apex, if you get into it, it's going to put you right in this wall right there.
You rolled a little bit too much speed. You probably should have slowed the car down just a little bit more because you can see where Terry is getting up on the power a little bit sooner than you are.
Yep.
Your power application is nice, it's progressive, but it needs to be a little bit sooner.
Okay. Where's he actually getting full? Initially, when you meet with Rob and you're going over the data, it's really looking at, you know, your comparative lines to your co-driver. You have to take that and apply it. I've got to go deeper by 40 feet or by 75 feet in the braking zone. It's tough. You just got to go out and actually hit your marks and try to go a little bit deeper next time, try to carry more speed into the corner. And on top of that, the heat's rising in the car, your mental focus is at its max. So it's tough.
At average speeds close to 100 miles an hour, drivers can't afford to lose focus for an instant.
Just think of how fast we're covering ground at 100, 150 miles an hour. 0.2 of a second is several hundred feet. And you get behind that far in your thinking, it's already off the track, into the guardrail or into the dirt before you realize what's even happened.
You know, everything that you do translates to tenths of a second. Screw up one corner, you're going to screw up the next 3. And those are all going to translate to losing time. The mental focus has to be there. And if you're checked out to lunch 3 turns later, you're 5 seconds back, you know, or 0.5 of a second back.
To maintain mental focus, drivers must be in top physical condition.
Yeah, I've always been an athlete. I was a great soccer player in high school and college. You know, any sport that I did, I was a natural at. And coming into racing, I really thought I was on top of my game, which was not the case. Your heart rate's jacked up, especially to start of a race. It's very easy to hyperventilate in the car because you're doing so many things. You're holding your breath. You're forgetting to think, and oh, I'm just trying to make this turn and come out as best as possible.
Generally, our heart rates are up at over 140 to 160 beats a minute for an hour at a time while we're in the car. The focus goes away as your fatigue sets in, so you have to be in good enough shape that you don't get fatigued.
It's not just a driver's actions that matter. His reactions may be even more important.